that they could actually be true. It's so crazy that people won't even believe it.
That I talk about with you, where we're going to be in total agreement. But I'm going to start with something more.
This news probably won't shock too many of you, but it might enrage some of you. The Trump administration.
We have some major news right now. The Department of Justice tonight is unredacting documents, admitting that it was wrong in making certain redactions on key documents outlining co-conspirators of Epstein and others. First up, this co-conspirator, his name is Les Wexner. That is confirmed. The Department of Justice has unredacted this file. If you go on the DOJ's website, you now see Les Wexner with his image. Kind of looks like that. Les Wexner. Just a different file. This file that was called out by Thomas Massie lists of about 20 people, almost all redacted. DOJ has unredacted it. Here is a new list of names. Now, we don't know who these names are just yet, why they're associated with Epstein. 2 of the names remain redacted, according to Todd Blanche, because they are victims. But these names shouldn't have been redacted in the first place if the DOJ so easily was willing to redact it tonight after being called out on Twitter by Thomas Massie. So they're now actively unredacting names that were previously redacted. Time to dig. I'll have more updates for you very soon. As always, spread the word and follow along for all the news you need to know about. We have some major developments about some of the most serious Epstein files that we've seen thus far, including possible identities of co-conspirators. One of the files relates to that torture video document. Let's break it down. Remember this file? Quote, "Where are you? Are you okay? I love the torture video." An email from Jeffrey Epstein to someone who his name is redacted. Well, Congressman Thomas Massie viewed it today and says, quote, "A sultan seems to have sent this. DOJ should make this public." Another document, a, quote, "co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, potentially. This is a well-known retired CEO. DOJ should unredact this. Why did they redact it?" Another document, he says, 4 of the 18 redacted names here were men born before 1970. These are not survivors by any means. Why are they redacted? He says DOJ needs to explain why they redacted unless they were just randoms in a lineup. More and more members of Congress are going to view the unredacted files. I'm trying to send as many file numbers to several members. Stay tuned for more. This is serious.
President Trump is now openly calling for the federal government to take over elections in more than a dozen states. It is prefaced on this, his lie that he won the 2020 election. Listen to what he told podcaster Dan Bongino, who was his deputy FBI director until just a month ago.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
The Constitution explicitly grants the states, not the federal government, not Republicans, the right to run their polls. This comes after the FBI searched an election office in Fulton County, Georgia last week and seized the 2020 ballots.
The GOP isn't the monolith it appears to be. Nearly 30 Republicans have broken ranks with Trump on key votes, and that's a bigger deal than most people realize. You won't hear much about it in mainstream coverage, where the narrative tends to default to party unity. But when you tally up the defections, Republicans actually siding with Democrats against their own party leader, the cracks are hard to ignore. Trump's grip on the party, it's slipping, and it's happening in plain sight.
Democrats are engaging in to try and prop up undocumented immigrants, for example, in certain states, and that could also be affecting the election process. Again, all of that without evidence. But I think what we're seeing, what we saw happen last week in Fulton County, Georgia, is one part of this. But we've also seen the president take other steps. One is that the Justice Department is now demanding that several states, including Minnesota, turn over their voter rolls, their full voter rolls, as the Trump administration is really trying to build a national voter file. We also know the president last year had, pushed forward with these executive orders. He signed an executive order in March to make significant changes to the electoral process in the United States, including requiring documentary proof of citizenship and demanding that all mail ballots be received by the times that poll close on election day.
Hey everyone, Jack Whitmore here with National Affairs Media. Today we're diving deep into some serious developments that are reshaping the political landscape right before our eyes. If you've been following along with this channel, you know we don't just skim the surface. We dig into what's really happening behind the headlines. And trust me, what's unfolding right now in the Republican Party deserves your full attention. Let's get into some major developments happening in the House, because January 8th, 2026 was genuinely a day for the history books. The House actually passed a 3-year extension of those enhanced Obamacare subsidies. Yes, you heard that correctly. The same subsidies the Republican Party has fought tooth and nail against for over a decade. The final vote came in at 234 to 196, with 17 Republicans crossing the aisle to vote yes alongside Democrats. Let that sink in for a moment, because this is not a minor procedural thing. This is substantial policy that Republicans have campaigned against for years. But here's where it gets even more interesting and frankly more concerning for Trump and his allies. Republican strategists are now sounding major alarms that Trump's refusal to back sitting GOP senators could put the party's Senate majority at serious risk heading into 2026. When you add it all up across different votes and different issues, we're looking at nearly 29 Republicans who've either openly defied Trump on key issues or found themselves targeted by his increasingly aggressive loyalty tests. And honestly, some of the things he said publicly about this situation are genuinely hard to believe. The rhetoric has gotten pretty intense. This isn't about a few swing votes anymore, folks. This is about whether Trump still commands the Republican Party the way he once did, or whether we're watching a full-blown GOP civil war unfold in real time. And from where I'm standing, it looks a lot more like the latter than most mainstream outlets are willing to admit. Think about what just happened in the House. Republicans actually teamed up with Democrats to extend Obamacare funding. This wasn't some minor procedural vote that nobody pays attention to. This was real policy with real consequences. And here's what makes it even more striking. Just the day before, only 9 GOP members had split from leadership on a procedural vote. Then suddenly, 17 jumped ship on actual substantive policy. That's nearly double the defections in a matter of hours. That kind of escalation tells you something significant is shifting beneath the surface. And get this, Fox News, of all outlets, called these Republicans rebels and pointed out that Trump's influence over Hill Republicans is clearly fading with each passing vote. When Fox News starts admitting Trump is losing his grip on the party, you know something real is happening. That's his own media ecosystem, his most reliable cheerleaders, acknowledging the cracks in his foundation. When your own propaganda network can't spin away the obvious, you've got a serious problem on your hands. But wait, there's so much more to unpack here. An independent analysis is warning that Trump's decision not to support 3 sitting Republican senators facing tough 2026 races is absolutely terrible strategy from a purely tactical standpoint. These aren't challengers trying to win new seats. These are incumbents, people already holding office with established campaigns and donor networks. Yet Trump won't back them because apparently they haven't proven themselves true enough to the MAGA brand. They didn't bow deeply enough. They didn't kiss the ring with sufficient enthusiasm. Republican strategists are genuinely panicked about this approach. They see a clear and completely avoidable path to handing the Senate over to Democrats on a silver platter. It's wild to think Trump might actively undermine his own party's chances at maintaining power just because he values personal loyalty over actually winning elections. Most politicians prioritize winning. Trump seems to prioritize worship, and that distinction is now having real consequences. The fractures don't stop there either. House Republicans are splitting into increasingly hostile camps. On one side, you've got the hardliners who will follow Trump even if it means driving the entire party off a cliff. They're true believers who see any deviation from Trump as betrayal. On the other side, you've got centrists and moderates focused primarily on surviving their next election. They're looking at their district polling and realizing that blind Trump loyalty might cost them their seats. Some of these Republicans are even threatening to block parts of Trump's budget and tax agenda. Think about that for a second. Members of his own party threatening to derail his core legislative priorities. That's not minor disagreement. That's open rebellion on the things Trump cares most about. When your own party members are willing to tank your agenda, your control is slipping in ways that are hard to recover from. Let me break down the numbers for you because the scope of this is really important to grasp. 5 Senate Republicans voted against Trump on that War Powers resolution. 17 House Republicans crossed over on Obamacare subsidies. Then you've got others either being actively targeted by Trump or walking away from the party because of his 2026 loyalty tests and purity demands. Add it all up, and you're looking at close to 30 Republicans either standing up against him or getting burned by his insistence on absolute fealty. This is a pattern, not an anomaly or a one-time thing. The GOP is fracturing in real time as members realize that blind loyalty to Trump might actually end their political careers. And the timing couldn't possibly be worse for him. He desperately needs party unity heading into 2026. But instead, he's facing open rebellion across multiple fronts simultaneously. We might genuinely be watching the opening salvos of a Republican civil war. And trust me, it's going to get very messy before it gets better. So let's dig into what these defections actually mean and why they matter so much. Because this goes way beyond individual votes or isolated incidents. We're talking about the future direction of the Republican Party and Trump's hold on power as midterms approach. These aren't abstract concerns. They have concrete implications for governance, policy, and the balance of power in Washington. Let's start with that War Powers vote, since that's really where the cracks started showing in dramatic fashion. 5 Republican senators, Rand Paul, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Todd Young, and Josh Hawley, voted to advance a resolution limiting Trump's authority to use military force without congressional approval. Now think about the ideological diversity in that group. You've got libertarians, moderates, and even some conservatives who typically align with Trump on most issues. Yet they came together on this. These 5 senators basically told Trump he can't just launch military action whenever and wherever he wants without getting Congress involved. Trump's been making a lot of noise about taking action in Venezuela. He's floated military options repeatedly, and these Republicans essentially said, slow down, you need our approval. That's how the Constitution works. You could feel his frustration through his social media rants, where he complained bitterly that their votes were undermining his authority as commander-in-chief. But here's the thing that seems to escape him. That's exactly the point of congressional oversight. Congress exists specifically to check presidential military power. That's not some radical interpretation. That's foundational to how our government was designed to work. The founders were deeply suspicious of concentrated executive power, and they built in checks for exactly this reason. The willingness of these Republicans to stand with Democrats on something this significant signals they're not giving Trump a blank check on military adventurism. He might want to project American power wherever he feels like it, but at least some members of his own party are saying there are limits and processes that need to be followed. This speaks to something bigger about Trump's tendencies toward concentrated power. Whether it's Venezuela, Greenland, or wherever else he's floated potential military action, some Republicans are stepping forward saying, we have a constitutional role here too. You don't get to make these decisions unilaterally. They're reasserting checks and balances rather than letting one person call all the shots. That's remarkable coming from his own party. Now let's talk about healthcare, because this is genuinely surprising on multiple levels. 17 House Republicans voted to keep Obamacare subsidies funded for 3 more years. These are members of a party that has spent well over a decade trying to destroy the Affordable Care Act. They've voted countless times to repeal it. They've made opposition to Obamacare a core part of their political identity. Campaign after campaign has featured promises to gut this law. Yet here they are, recognizing that yanking those subsidies away from millions of Americans right before an election would be absolute political suicide. They're doing the electoral math on 2026, and the numbers are stark. Millions of Americans, including many in Republican districts, rely on these subsidies to...
We have news right now. Ghislaine Maxwell says she will only speak publicly and testify if Donald Trump lets her out of prison and grants her clemency. Today, her lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, released a statement to committee members as she invoked her Fifth Amendment and stayed silent during her deposition, and essentially said that she will speak and she will spill the beans in a way if Trump grants her clemency. Quote, if this committee and the American public truly want to hear the unfiltered truth about what happened, there is a straightforward path. Ms. Maxwell is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. But here's the problem with that statement. Ms. Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, has lied under oath repeatedly based on prior perjury charges and also based on information revealed in the Epstein files that have been released over the past several weeks. So it's very difficult to see how anyone can trust what she has to say, even if she is granted clemency. Spread the word. Full updates on my Substack, linked in bio. Subscribe for free. Follow along for all the news that you need to know about. I'll have more soon.
Well, we have more breaking news for you now. U.S. President Donald Trump is taking aim once again at Canada, this time criticizing Canada's building of the Ontario to Michigan bridge. In a post on social media, Trump says negotiations will begin immediately to ensure that the U.S. owns part of the bridge. Trump says the bridge would be entirely owned by Canada, adding that he will not allow it to open unless the U.S. is fully compensated for everything it has given to Canada.
Breaking news, that's the view of the Gordie Howe International Bridge in Windsor between Ontario and Michigan. It is the latest subject of a trade threat by Donald Trump. In a social media post just a short while ago, Trump wrote in part, Canada's building a massive bridge between Ontario and Michigan. They own both the Canada and the United States side, and of course built it with virtually no U.S. content. I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we've given them. We'll start negotiations immediately.
People are very genuinely hurt by Donald Trump's latest comments, especially the West Windsor community. Now, that is the community where this bridge was going to open and practically be the gateway to Canada. And a lot of hopes for economic revitalization for that community have been now, in the air. There are businesses who are moving in there, trails being set up, all of this in hopes that once the bridge opens up, more American visitors will be coming in, more tourism dollar flowing into the community. Now, all of that is in the air. And people are expressing on social media posts that it's $6.4 billion which Canada has spent on this bridge. And why should, Trump have any share of this?
The Epstein files could possibly bring down a British Prime Minister. Why do you think that is happening there, but it's hardly...
We have some major news right now. The unredacted Epstein files show that Donald Trump lied about a key part of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Jamie Raskin, a congressman from Maryland, just finished reviewing the unredacted Epstein files that he was able to see because he's a member of Congress. He came out and confirmed that the Department of Justice redacted a section of an Epstein synopsis prepared by Epstein's lawyers. And while that synopsis said that Donald Trump said that Epstein wasn't a member of Mar-a-Lago, but was a guest at Mar-a-Lago, and that he was never kicked out. And these documents were from the 2009 period where Epstein was first under investigation. Now that's a problem for the president. Why? Well, because he previously said that back in 2003, 2004, he kicked Epstein out of the Mar-a-Lago club due to inappropriate relationships Epstein had with a spa worker at the Mar-a-Lago club. That was Donald Trump's quotes. That was what Donald Trump said. Well, we're now learning that the DOJ redacted a key part of a synopsis that would have completely undercut Donald Trump's prior claims. What else is redacted? Spread the word, follow for more.
New Jeffrey Epstein files have reignited explosive claims that the convicted pedophile secretly worked as a foreign intelligence asset. Messages from the latest batch of docs reportedly include references to Israel's spy agency Mossad and secret surveillance equipment that was allegedly installed across Epstein's homes. The documents appear to paint a murky picture of Epstein's international contacts and fuel speculation that he gathered compromising information on powerful figures. According to The Times, newly released files include claims from a confidential FBI informant that the billionaire pedo was a co-opted Mossad agent. The FBI report from October 2020 said the source had become convinced that Epstein was a co-opted Mossad agent and alleged that the financier had been trained as a spy. The report claimed that Epstein had links to U.S. and allied intelligence circles through his longtime lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, citing elite academic and political connections. But Dershowitz dismissed the allegations. Epstein himself appeared anxious about the rumors. In a 2018 email to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, he asked him to make clear that I don't work for Mossad. The files also appeared to show how Epstein had extensive Israeli business and travel interests. These include investments in an Israeli surveillance-linked startup and multiple trips to Tel Aviv dating back decades. Epstein also reportedly ordered staff to install hidden motion-activated cameras in his homes. Emails show Epstein asking his pilot and handyman Larry Wazowski to buy 3 motion-detected hidden cameras that can record. Several of Epstein's victims, including his most prominent accuser, Virginia Giuffre, have long claimed that they were secretly filmed. But Epstein denied having hidden cameras. In a 2006 email sent to himself, he said that reports of hidden surveillance were misleading, claiming that cops were aware of the cameras and that they had an innocent explanation. New Jeffrey Epstein.
The Epstein files are turning out to be one of the biggest cover-ups in American history. I was just in Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition. She refused to answer a single question about who the rich and powerful men were who raped underage girls on Epstein's Island. Now Thomas Massie and I are going to the Justice Department at 3 p.m. today. We're going to demand to see the unredacted files so we can hold this group of elite accountable.
There are 3 big stories we have to break down right now in tonight's U.S. News Recap, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Starting off with this bridge right here, which you're going to hear a lot about over the next few days. This is the Gordie Howe International Bridge. It connects Canada and the United States. The reason why you're going to hear about this is because Donald Trump says he will not open up this new bridge until the United States is compensated. On Truth Social, he says, "I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we've given to them," referring to Canada. And also, importantly, Canada treats the United States with the fairness and respect that we deserve, and we'll start negotiations immediately. These comments come as Donald Trump is trying to put more pressure onto Canada. Remember that Canada is America's second largest trading partner. Trump is not happy with Canada because Canada made a trading deal with China, something which in the beginning Donald Trump was okay with, and then now he's not. We haven't heard a response yet from the Canadians, but this right here has been under construction for many years, and it connects Ontario and Michigan. Next, we move to Washington, D.C., where members of Congress for the first time were able to see the unredacted files that pertain to Jeffrey Epstein. Just after 2 hours, we're hearing from representatives such as Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, who says that they've identified at least 6 different individuals whose names had been previously redacted in those files and who appear to be implicated in those files. Massie told reporters, quote, "There are 6 men. We went in there for 2 hours. There's millions of files, right? And in a couple of hours, we found 6 men whose names had been redacted who are implicated in a way that the files are presented." Ro Khanna said, quote, "Just because someone may be in the files doesn't mean that they're guilty, but there are very powerful people who did things to underage girls. It wasn't just Epstein and Maxwell." Representative Massie says he will not release the names of these people, but he wants the Justice Department to review and correct what he's calling a serious redaction failure. Lastly, we move to the House, where today they passed a very rare bipartisanship bill. This bill, which is titled the Housing for the 21st Century Act, was passed 390 to 9 and is aimed at addressing the affordability crisis that everyone's feeling right now. So what does it do? Well, the bill directs federal agencies to study gaps in housing programs, going to modernize HUD's home investment partnership programs, and they're going to expand ways, or at least pathways, for home ownership. This bill will now head to the Senate, where they're going to review it and hopefully pass it through. But that, my friends, is your news recap for the night. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on these stories and more, so please do share my videos and follow me for more.
Breaking news as the Ghislaine Maxwell testimony took place, and Rep. Melanie Stansbury from New Mexico came out and blasted it. Blasted this as an entire massive cover-up, the largest cover-up we've ever seen in the history of the United States. I've been saying this, guys. This is the biggest cover-up in the history of the world. This is the largest scandal that involves many multiple different countries, many people. She said that there are at least, that we know of right now, 36 people in Trump's circle that are in these Epstein files, including family members and current cabinet members and officials. Guys, this is massive. And Jamie Raskin, Rep. Jamie Raskin came out and said he looked at some of the unredacted files today and found that Trump had lied about several things, including how he said he kicked Epstein out of the Mar-a-Lago club. Well, it turns out when you look at the unredacted files, Epstein was never a member. He was only ever a guest. So Trump was lying about all that. And we shouldn't be surprised. He lies about everything. So more to come, guys. We're going to get deep into this here very soon now that the Congress members have access to these files, the unredacted files, and we'll see what more fallout happens. Comment what you think, like, share, spread the word, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
We have breaking news right now. After reviewing unredacted files this afternoon, Congressman Ro Khanna and Congressman Thomas Massie have said that the Department of Justice has redacted 6 names of men who potentially or likely are incriminated related to Jeffrey Epstein. 6 names redacted of possible co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein's. Meanwhile, Jared Moskowitz, another member of Congress who reviewed some of the unredacted files and images, says that he saw, quote, lots of co-conspirators mentioned. Quote, I mean, it's disgusting. There are lots of names, lots of co-conspirators, and they're trafficking girls all across the world. Why are these names redacted? Those 6 names should not be redacted in the files at all. The Epstein Files Transparency Act does not permit those redactions to occur of those 6 names. This is a significant development. I'll continue to provide you more updates as we get more information, so spread the word, and as always, follow along, stay up to date on all the news that you need to know about. There'll be more to come soon.
As expected, Ghislaine Maxwell took the fifth and refused.
Donald Trump is completely losing it tonight as he is now claiming that China will permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup in a deranged post about Canada. Now, this is on Truth Social tonight, where Donald Trump decided to go off on Canada, mostly upset about the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge, where Donald Trump was going through his usual saying, we should be compensated for it, we should own half of it, all of that nonsense. But one part of his rant was particularly troubling. Take a listen. Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China, which will eat Canada alive. We'll just get leftovers. I don't think so. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. What in the world is that? When I tell you the midterms are vital, I can't stress it enough, because stuff like this is normal for Donald Trump and nobody around him is willing to do anything about it. Congress right now certainly isn't going to do anything about it. We are stuck with this unless we can take the 2026 midterms big time.
Were you a close friend and confidant of Jeffrey Epstein?
Breaking news, as the ransom deadline has passed for Nancy Guthrie to be returned to Savannah Guthrie and the rest of her family, the FBI has released the following statement to multiple members of the press. They said, quote, for more than a week, FBI agents, analysts, and professional staff have worked around the clock to reunite Nancy with her family. The FBI isn't aware of any continued communication between the Guthries and suspected kidnappers, nor have we identified a suspect or person of interest in this case at this time. Additional personnel from FBI field offices across the nation continue to deploy to Tucson. We are currently operating a 24-hour command post that includes crisis management experts, analytics support, and investigative teams, but we still need the public's help. So they're asking for more help. And I think this makes it pretty clear that they have no idea what's going on here and that they've sort of been looking for any possible lead. And I just want to point out that the ransom has not been paid according to TMZ yet, and we would know if there were pending transactions.
This is a fresh royal statement this evening from the official spokesperson for the King, and it refers to the work of Thames Valley Police, who are now assessing whether Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shared confidential data with Jeffrey Epstein. It may be easier for me just to read out exactly what has been delivered from the King's official spokesperson. He says, the King has made clear in words and through unprecedented actions his profound concern at allegations which continue to come to light in respect of Mr. Mountbatten Windsor's conduct. While the specific claims in question are for Mr. Mountbatten Windsor to address, if we are approached by Thames Valley Police, we stand ready to support them, as you would expect. As was previously stated, their Majesties' thoughts and sympathies have been and remain with the victims of any and all forms of abuse.
Huge breaking news. Thomas Massie will be reading the unredacted Epstein files today. So Massie made this announcement on X last night, and he asked the people in the comments to comment the email in which they would most want to see who sent it, and they did not disappoint. Here are the examples from some of the outrageous, disgusting emails that hopefully Thomas Massie will expose today. But I'm not sure exactly what time all this information will be exposed, but you can bet on it that I will let you know as soon as I know. But hopefully now, this is a time for real transparency and real accountability for the people that were involved in this disgusting scandal.
He's got a long list of grievances in tonight's post. How much of this is about the bridge, and how much is it about trying to extract concessions on other issues, especially in the run-up to the Kuzma review?
I'm really glad you raised that, because if you look at the text, as you point out, we've got Ontario banning alcohol or taking U.S. alcohol off the LCBO, dairy grievances around China. And then at the very bottom, what I'm being told by people in the federal government is the most important part of all of this. He says negotiations are going to restart. Remember, he killed negotiations with Canada on a sectoral basis, on any basis at the end of October. So the very fact that he is saying explicitly that this is about restarting negotiations, even though it comes after all those grievances, leads me to believe this is about a whole lot more than just the bridge, Omar.
We are witnessing the largest.
We have breaking news right now. Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition has started and ended after just minutes. She appeared, according to House Oversight Committee members, and said nothing. In a new statement, the House Oversight Committee Democrats say, after months of fully defying our subpoena, Ghislaine Maxwell finally appeared before the House Oversight Committee and said nothing. She answered no questions and provided no information. And while it comes as the family of Virginia Giuffre has released a very powerful statement that everyone should read. It's fully on my Instagram for you to check out. But also, I want you to read this one line at the end. Quote, Ghislaine Maxwell, we will never let what you did be minimized, softened, or rewritten. We'll end this letter with Virginia's last wishes to you. Ghislaine, you deserve to spend the rest of your life in a jail cell, trapped in a cage forever, just like you trapped your victims. I'll continue to provide you updates as we get more information on this. Spread the word and follow along, stay up to date on all the news you need to know about. More to come soon.
I guess Donald Trump took.
We have some serious news right now that will fundamentally kill local media channels across the country, and here's what you need to know, because Donald Trump just endorsed a merger that could fundamentally change media as we know it. So I previously talked about the Nexstar-Tegna merger, and well, look at what the president posted today. We need more competition against the enemy. He's referring to local media. The fake news national TV networks. Letting good deals get done, like Nexstar-Tegna, will help knock out the fake news because there will be more competition and at a higher and more sophisticated level. Those that are opposed don't fully understand how good the concept of this deal is for them, but they will in the future. But if you want to know why people oppose this deal, well, it's because it'll fundamentally destroy local media networks that so many people rely on. For reference, Nexstar is literally the biggest owner of TV stations across the country. And if this deal is successful, Nexstar would control about 80% of the local TV networks that households rely on. The FCC, which controls these types of things, well, they typically have a cap, 39%. That's the max you could own as a company. Well, if this merger were to go through, that would shoot up to 80% ownership. Complete violation of FCC standards. And if you want to know why Donald Trump is talking about it now, well, it's because there's a big hearing to discuss this very issue on February 10th, this week, in front of the United States Senate, hosted by Ted Cruz. And it's pretty clear that this White House and this president are trying to walk Republicans on the Hill into a pretty big political mess. And now, all it is they want to raise the... We have some major news right now. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that there is a bombshell whistleblower complaint against Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. It's so bad that it is apparently locked inside of a safe because it could, quote, cause grave. And the Trump administration for several months has been struggling to even figure out a way to notify Congress, as it has to do,